Hopefully something's happened. There we go. You're recording this message. Make sure everyone knows that they are being recorded. Right. Remind me to switch it off later as well. So the agenda today is going to be these people have got 15 minutes each to present on their chosen topic. And me and the other committee members will be keeping an eye on the time. We're not going to allow an overrun. Well, maybe a tiny, wincy bit. So let's see how we all fare. Now, of course, we are all under the Dynamics 365 user group umbrella. And I'm sure you all know about the main London meeting that we run in Reading or London twice a year. And we've had that on a virtual format as well as the other user groups around the country. There's been quite a bit of turmoil at the D365 organisation, and I'm just wondering if Andrew would like to add anything, because he's our sort of UK chair, and he may have some additional insight that I don't. And I only learned just today that someone else has had to leave that business. So do you want to add anything, Andrew, at all?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
But not too long, because we've got to start at 6:45. Okay, assuming Anna joins us.
I can fill for 7 minutes. Yeah, so I don't know how much people that have joined the call kind of know about dynamic communities or what's been happening there. So Dynamic Communities is the organization that oversees all of the user groups around the world, not just Dynamics 365 user group, but Power Apps user group, Flow user group, AX, Great Plains, all of those kind of user groups. And it was going really well because they used to run massive in-person events in Amsterdam and in America and around the world, and they were doing great until COVID obviously shut all that down and stopped those events. And Dynamic Communities so far have been quite slow to react to this different world that we're in, and as a result they have a massive drop in income. And they've let a load of people go. So that organization has shrunk from about 115 people down to more like 15 or 20 people now in the last 6 months or so. Anyway, so what does that mean for anybody else? Essentially, they're carrying on. They're trying to pivot and change their business model so that they can make money in this world that is a bit different and very virtual. And how does that affect us? It doesn't necessarily affect us. So we're still carrying on as the Dynamics 365 user group. If you don't know, I head up the UK kind of user group. That's why I'm talking. But yeah, we're carrying on as we are, really. I mean, in a sense, we don't actually need Dynamic Communities to do what we're doing. All we're doing is meeting up every now and again and getting some speakers together and sharing knowledge. We don't necessarily need Dynamic Communities to do that. That said, we've got no intention of not supporting Dynamic Communities going forward, and just sort of see how that pans out really with them. Hopefully they can change their business model. I've been talking to them about how they can do that, and they've got lots of big plans. So hopefully that comes off. We are maybe back to in-person events next year, and that that would help them a lot. So yeah, hopefully we can just ride out the storm, carry on as we are. There's no impact on us particularly, and we'll carry on doing events. And on that note, actually, we've got an event coming up on December the 2nd, which you can register for. We've got 15 speakers for that, lots of sessions throughout the day, loads of those different topics. So if you head over to d365ug.com/UK, you can have a look at the agenda there and register. Please do come along.
Thank you, Andrew.
Did I pad long enough?
You did, and Anna's joined us.
Hey, good.
I'm just going to get the event that you just referred to on the screen. So that's this one here. 2nd of December, there's the link to join, and then we've got parallel tracks with all those different sessions. So that's usually a fun day. So if you can come for that, dipping into as much or as little of that as you want.
Awesome.
Great.
Yeah.
Super. All right. So we have had annual sponsors for D365 UG. So it's just a little nod to their names. If anybody else is interested in sponsoring, then you can contact, well, actually, I don't know if this contact's still there, but I guess you could try. Anyway, separately from the UG, in terms of any of the Dynamics products or the Power Platform products and all the others, if you have suggestions, that you think should make it into the product, go to that URL and submit your idea. And Microsoft does look here, and they often say, "Oh, but this has had a lot of votes. We're going to deal with it," rather than other things. So don't suffer in silence if there are things that you'd like to see in the product. We haven't got a next meeting date and time yet. I guess we're still thinking about it. Maybe we'll see what happens with regulations after Christmas, and if it's feasible to have an in-person meeting, even if we're all sitting 2 or 3 meters apart, we might do that. So the Cambridge committee will have a think about that. And if we can't, perhaps we'll have another online meeting like this. At the end of the evening today, would you please fill in a feedback form? Or maybe I'll post it before the end of the evening. It's a Forms, Microsoft Forms one, and I'll post the URL into the chat a little bit later on. Not much point doing it now because you can't say how the speakers have been until you've heard them. So, and if one of my colleagues would remind me in case I forget, please. Right. So thank you for attending this. I'm now going to hand over to Anna, who is our first presenter. So Anna, just bear with me while I stop sharing myself, and then I'm going to make you a presenter and you can take over. Oh, you already are a presenter. So Anna, feel free to share and start your presentation, and thank you very much for coming along.
Hi everyone, thank you very much for having me. I'm really excited actually to do a really quick presentation today. Let's just see how my screen share actually works. What can you see?
Yep, we can see get on the RPA train.
Awesome, great. So that's what I'm talking about. So that's very good that you can see that.
Excellent.
Okay, amazing. Once again, thanks everyone for joining and for coming just to see my quick talk on RPA. My name's Anna Demen. You can find me on Twitter and LinkedIn. I work as a partner technical architect for Microsoft, and my job is actually to take care of integration scenarios and robotic process automation. Now, I'm talking to you about RPA today because I think it's a big deal. And I think it's a big deal because I managed to do some stuff with it in a really short amount of time. And I've seen just how stable it is and just how much need it is for it in the market. So I think you should know about it a little bit as well. RPA is part of the, sorry, I'm trying to move my slides. Sorry, guys. Oh, yeah. RPA it's moved on. Thanks. RPA is part of the Power Platform. Our lovely Power Platform contains Power BI, Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Virtual Agent. And RPA is actually a part of Power Automate, and it will talk to other stuff as well, such as other data connectors, AI Build, and the X-Common Data Service, now known as Dataverse. So we are actually talking about Power Automate. Common Data Service or Dataverse is the thing that we mentioned before and is our engine underneath everything within the Power Platform. So this is essentially still an API, even though it's got a different name. It will actually connect to all of your apps and flows in Power BI and AI Build, as well as it will give you the opportunity to write some code in Visual Studio and using, other services and so on and so forth. It does have our security, entities, and logic. It stores our data in a variety of spaces, but also it allows us to integrate with the outside world. And that's a big deal because nowadays, when we do try and make a brand new system, we are going to start to focus on what matters most, especially if we are at home. That actually means that, we don't have that much time anymore. And even maybe we had some legacy systems or procedures that could only, these types of procedures could only be done in the office. So since we're not in the office anymore, we need something to work on that. And this is what we're gonna use today to actually implement in order to have a fully built online business process. And this is very much a type of digital transformation, because we're going to take all of our workflows, and I'm not just talking about our Dataverse and Power Platform workflows. We're going to take all of them in our enterprise scenario, and we're going to make them work in a very similar way as we would do before this pandemic when we were in the office. Now, the difference is that by automating these processes, we actually have much more compliance, governance, security, and so on and so forth. So all of a sudden, all of these systems are talking to each other. We have a lot of ways to trigger these processes. We have a way to actually work with documents and templates and Excel files and data storage locations, and so on and so forth. So all of this is what we call intelligent automation, and we can use AI for it as well. Essentially, if you are going to build a flow, you can trigger an AI model by using the AI builder. You'll be able to do many scenarios just with templates that you find on the AI builder, and you'll be able to trigger them via Power Automate. What's new in this is the fact that you can have multiple templates within just one model. So let's just say, for example, if you want to interpret a document, and this document comes in many shapes and forms, you can use just one AI model to actually translate the document and then automate it using a flow in Power Automate. That's a big deal because you don't have to have many flows anymore, which is why we really love this new addition. I think it's been mentioned just before that if you do have ideas with regards to how the Power Platform can be improved, do note them, and someone at Microsoft is going to have a look at all of these ideas, and eventually they'll come into reality, such as this multiple templates per model. Now, Power Automate for desktop will actually bridge the gap in between what we have and what we can automate with Flow and Power Automate, and with other connectors, and with, our Azure functions and Logic apps and so on and so forth. We're still going to have some legacy applications. This will be Excel files that we move from right to left, or they might be data that we manually move from a SQL database to an Oracle database, or this can be everything, right? I've worked within a bank. They had like 10 departments, and they each had their own little quirks, and we had to do many manual things. Well, right now, what we can do is we can record that task, we can automate it, and then we can play it back, and the system will just do that for you. So that means you don't have to do it yourself. And the benefit of that is not just the fact that you don't have to do it yourself, but this system is auditable. We know if something's failed, you can go on holiday, right? So it's really cool that we can do that now. Power Automate for desktop will allow you to author with ease any sort of automation that you would like. So it might be just the recording of some steps that you would do before, but this will also have some error handling. So in case one system didn't load or something like that, you'll immediately see what happened. And it will also be able to let you automate across multiple apps. So let's just say a process comes from A to B, and you have to go from an email to a document, to a legacy app, to an SFTP server, and so on. You're only going to need one flow to do that. And that's a big deal from a licensing perspective, but also from a competitive perspective. If you know anything about UiPath or other RPA providers, you will know that they do one robot to perform one action and will be even quite expensive. With Power Automate for Desktop, you have the whole capability of Dataverse and the Power Platform. Now, RPA came out in January and it was quite fiddly, didn't quite work. It then had a big update in May, and again, it was still quite fiddly. It could only do Windows 32, Win32 applications. It could only do Edge and Chrome. Like, it wasn't quite ready. Well, right now, with the acquisition of Win Automation from Softomotive, we can actually run a variety of applications, desktop applications, as well as browser and applications that we access over the web. And you will be able to actually have a robot that you can use in multiple scenarios as well. So big deal. Things have moved on really quickly, and now it really works. So before in May, when I tried this technology, it didn't really work. I've tried it now. Worked like a charm. We had a lot of experiences within the hack as well. We do solution accelerator hacks at Microsoft, and we use this technology. It was really easy to just add tasks to it. So the way it works, it's got a set of variables that you can define as inputs and output. And these variables can go from Common Dataverse to Power Automate for Desktop, and then you can set it back as well. So that means that all of a sudden you have that sort of logging experience. Everything talks to each other. You can hold that result into your Dataverse organization. Now, furthermore, you can use subflows. You can have all sorts of messages. So this will work sort of like a dialogue when your software prompts you if you want something or you don't want something. You can add images. You can add all sorts of scripts from, I don't know, JavaScript, PowerShell, Python. You can combine everything within this tool, and you can only do this because we have the old Win Automation product that was already production ready and it was being sold and people used it and so on. But Microsoft took this technology and embedded it within the Power Platform. So this is what makes it even more powerful, right? The exception handling capabilities will allow you to add breakpoints just as you do with code. And you'll be able to continue to run a flow or to stop a flow or to change something to easily debug stuff, right? So again, enterprise ready solution, even though it says it's still in preview, I can assure you, you can really start playing with it. You do not have to wait until next year. You should get on it now. It does offer automation at scale. It's able to perform, multi-threading activities and stuff like that. Now, to show you what it looks like, unfortunately, I can't give you a demo because I don't have a lot of time. I actually only have 5 minutes left. But if you have a look at this, and I rushed through this as well, but if you have a look at this, this is my flow, right? You recognize this flow. It's got a, excuse me, sorry? I don't know if someone says something.
No, I don't think so. Carry on.
Sorry. So you can see this is just a normal flow. I've included just a very easy Teams card just to do an approval process, for example. You can see my Teams card here in my flow. And then based on that result, I can actually run a Power Automate for Desktop robot. So that means that I'll be able to pass on all of the variables that I've worked with before. So before this, I had, I don't know, an AI model that grabbed these values from a document, let's just say, which is actually what happened. And after that, I was able to say, do you approve or do you not approve this sort of bill? And if you do approve, then this will start a Power Automate for desktop process. And then from there on, you know, you will use the same variables. When you edit this actual flow, you'll be able to see that it lets you launch the app directly from your flow window. So you don't have to do much, you don't have to do anything else. And once you've launched the app, you can see your variables right here. All of your input, all of your input variables, and you can actually pass on variables back. You'll be able to hold credentials, so this works in an unattended way as well. Let's just say that you have a process running every night at midnight. Absolutely, you can do this. You do not have to be logged onto your machine. And I've tried to capture the variety of activities that you can actually do in this screenshot. It really doesn't do it justice. You can do so much, even from, you know, variable processing, from conditional and loop processing. Then you're gonna be able to run commandlets and PowerShell scripts, and you're gonna be able to move files from left to right, to access all sorts of data repositories and so on and so forth. So yeah, this is really, really powerful, and you should really check it out. The other very cool thing is that it is actually fully integrated with the Center of Excellence starter kit. So you will be able to see who's building your RPA flows, how much are you consuming, you know, what are your errors, are actually your AI models working fine or not. You'll be able to promote your champions, have data loss prevention rules, and so on and so forth. So really big on the compliance side as well. Once again, a big advantage over doing things manually. If you want to learn more about this, we are actually conducting 3 days of Power Platform at Microsoft, and these are going to be next week. You can actually register for these events. They aren't full day events, especially on the last day, on the 26th of November. I'm gonna go into much more detail with regards to this demo, how you can get started with RPA, and also how to use the Center of Excellence as well. And that's it for me. Thank you very much. If there are any questions, please post them in the chat and I'll happily answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for that interesting overview there. You did very well with the time. So if anybody wants to ask questions, feel free to either type it or just come off mute and ask away. Someone says, can you pass the links, please? Which
Absolutely.
links? Yeah, you're right with that.
For the events, yeah, I'll pass them right now.
Yep, just post them into the chat. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Right. So feel free to stay for the rest of the meeting if you wish. And now I'd like to invite Luke to come along, please.
Good.
So will somebody make Luke a presenter?
Yeah, I think so. How everyone is very well. I'll just share my screen.
There we go. We can see you. Great stuff.
So hi, everyone. My name's Luke Ham. I'm the Chief Exec at GovGrant. I have the pleasure of working with Pippa, who invited me along tonight. So thank you for having me. So the brief was relatively broad. I can almost guarantee you the next 15 minutes will be the least technical 15 minutes of the evening, but hopefully give you an insight to something that really stands out for me, and one of the reasons why we invest so heavily in Dynamics is the whole concept of the single version of the truth. So very quickly, I'm guessing the intro slide didn't count as a slide, but I've stuck to 2. Very quickly about me. My background is mainly sales and marketing. I sort of grew up with a very large American business in the financial services industry, various teams in the UK across the globe, using lots and lots of different platforms. I love data. Even though I'm a salesperson, I think the best way to sell is through process, and the best way to drive process is through good quality data and what that teaches you. GovGrant, we are a St Albans based business. We work with SMEs right the way up to FTSE 100 businesses, and we help identify their research and development efforts for 2 reasons. 1, to identify what could potentially be patentable, and secondly, for research and development expenditure relief, R&D tax credits, as you may all have come across. I joined the business 3.5 years ago now. We were founded in 2006 by 2 founders, entrepreneurs. We're a private equity-backed business, and when I joined, and the challenge was set to me around how do we scale this business, how do we really grow this business, and how do we create the right lens for the next buyer, the next investor. We tendered and we chose Dynamics because of lots of good stuff, but of course the data was key. Me personally, I'm married, 2 kids. That's my 2 wonderful children there. I talk a lot, so 15 minutes is a challenge, so I'll try and be good. I love to cook, and I'm slightly obsessed with Les Mis. I've seen it 16 times on the stage. And it's almost the one thing I miss about not driving is not listening to the soundtrack every month. I'm very, very passionate about people, passionate about the development of people within the business. And again, that will flick through to one of the things I talk about in a second. I'm very direct and to the point. So if you do have any questions, down the eyes, no problem at all. I'm very, very happy with that. So I used the phrase here, you can cut the cake differently, but it always should taste the same. One of the key things that I've always thought about when it comes to data, particularly from when I was in sort of, if you like, the general, like boots on the floor, leather on the streets, selling stuff, you always, and you've all probably come across the sort of barrier of people think this is Big Brother. I've got to record it in the CRM because everyone knows what I'm trying to do and this, that, and the other. And for me, it couldn't be further from the truth. The whole point for me is that when you have that data integrity and when you can see, right, what is everyone going on, it can lead to 3 really, really powerful outcomes, in my view. So the first one is, it's not designed, for me, when we think about data, it's not designed to be Big Brother. It's designed to empower our colleagues, our staff, and allow things to be delegated, as opposed to having that control freak boss who has to look at everything all the time and make sure you're doing exactly what you want. Actually, if I give you the tools to be able to go and make yourself famous, go and make yourself famous. We should hire the right people, and they shouldn't be limited by the processes around them. The processes around them should just build confidence. And when we set that single version of the truth in our business, and Pippa knows this all too well, we can see how are the sales team going, what are the things that are important to us over the past next 12 months, what are we trying to knock down in the quarter, how does that align to other colleagues within the organisation, are we setting ourselves up for the most successful outcomes that we could possibly achieve. It does keep everyone honest. Things that get measured, get noted, get measured, and we report, obviously, all of our information. As I said, we are a private equity-backed business, and we sit within a VCT, which is a listed structure. So the integrity of our data isn't just important for me or the management team or whoever else. It's important with an investor lens. We are a small business, 60 people, 7.5 million turnover. However, we are a publicly listed through our investment structure. So what we do and how we record it has to show true clarity, and we need to be able to keep ourselves to account to the standard in which we've set. And those metrics of not just the performance metric, how do I get the best out of this person on this day? When you look at when we're trying to put the investments into the business, where do we want to deploy our marketing spend? what's the next project we want to think about with Dynamics? We're just about to launch a portal, and that's a relatively big step for us. And straight away, we think in a way as a business that, right, portal step 1, what does version 12 look like? That's what we're asking that from day one. What does that look like? What track do we need to run? What's going to be important for us to decide if the check's going to be 100K or 200K or whatever the cost is going to be? How have we got a data track that allows us to make those decisions in the most appropriate way? And finally, I'm a storyteller. The thing a salesperson should be a storyteller. And my job actually is I've got to tell a story to clients, to colleagues, and to investors. And when you have data integrity, and the thing that I love most about Dynamics is that I can trust the information that I see. And if something doesn't look right, I know where I can go. I don't have to go to Pippa or someone else in the team and say, tell me where this answer is. I've got the tools at my disposal to go, I'm going to go and find why this point doesn't stack up to me. What question do I need to ask next? And when the things stack up in the right way, I can then think about how I bend that data and how that message, by knowing what the single version of the truth is, and I'm not going to get a curveball when someone else looks at the data in a different way. Once we've got that single version of the truth, that single way in which we look at data, think about data, message data, I've then got the power to think about how I craft that story and for what purpose, whether it be for employee engagement, whether it be for investor relations, whether it be for clients. More and more, when we are dealing with larger clients, they want to know this stuff. It's not good enough for us to say, yes, client, Mr. Client, we're all over this. It's all good. They want to see the proof. So we've now also got that other dynamic of clients asking us to demonstrate data integrity, because we hold very sensitive data about our clients. We hold payroll information. We hold the most secret thing they've got, their research and development, the thing that isn't in the public domain, we know about, and we've got data and a track about, and we want to leverage that data in a way that is useful for us. So that allows us to do all those bits and bobs. So I think I've run exactly to 9 minutes to allow plenty of time. I could carry on, but if there are questions, I'm happy to take them.
Great, very good. Thank you, Luke. Yeah, brilliant marks for sticking to time. Thank you. Okay, there's one question that seems to be slightly offbeat. Do you hear the people sing? from Matt Whiting.
Now, if my piano skills had got better, I'd have turned around to the piano and played it. So I used to be.
Oh wow!
But yeah, it's when you learn it at 11, you can't really remember it. The only thing I didn't mention, which I will just quickly because we have got time, when we talk about wild data and that alignment to process, is that we have a really unique group of people actually. I know Pippa's mentioned a few times about the business, but we have a range of staff that are early stage career, never been in a job before, right the way up to people who have been there, done that, not just got the t-shirt, they designed the t-shirt, they made the t-shirt, they patented the t-shirt, they've done everything. And when we try and integrate, when we try and think about how do we create a platform that services the needs of all of those people with lots of different experiences, with lots of different levels of intellect. You've got people who are, never been to, not taken their education further than GCSE, right the way up to 4 degrees from Oxford, Cambridge, Princeton, and somewhere else. And that really does think about, I know a lot of the development time we think about is, are we going to be able to create the processes that allow the data to go in the way that suits all these different people, that suits this totally random group of users? And it is the most random group. I used to run a team of about 500 people, and I can honestly say I've got more diversity and user experience in 60 than I had in 500. But it keeps us on our toes. It actually, when you have to cater for those needs, but still have that single version of the truth, it really keeps us on our toes and actually keeps us, you know, Pippa and the rest of the team on their toes, thinking about, is this going to work? We might want, the perfect answer might be this, we want this data set, but let's be practical about it. Let's think about how this group of people are going to be able to interact it. And Pippa's done a fabulous job to make sure that we've got that acceptance through.
Luke, if I just butt in there, I've got 3 questions in the chat, so maybe you can't see, but I'll read them out in the order that they were entered. So the first one is from Anthony. Are you just using the out-of-the-box deduplication tools, or do you have a data admin structure to support this?
That's a great question, and probably one more for Pippa, who's come off mute.
Hi, we use a combination of the out-of-the-box dedupe tools, and I've got basically a bunch of views and bits and bobs to keep an eye on our data integrity. As Lucas mentioned, that's really important to us, so we're really hot on it.
Okay, and the next one is from Matt, who says, actually serious questions, because he's the one that asked about the singing. What technology are you using for the portal, and are you just using Power Apps, or are you paying the eye-watering prices for Power BI Premium too?
So we have on Power BI, yes, we use Power BI. I can't remember the licensing which we have. One of the things we do is we have, and I think we've managed to work out a way that is cost effective. There are about 8 or 9 data points that are important for us as a business every single day. And we have a daily report that goes out to all the users, and that's a Power BI backed product. So here are the 8 data points that are important every single day, and every single person is reminded of them twice a day to see how we're tracking against them. Pippa, anything to add around how that runs the portal?
So the portal is a Dynamics Power Apps portal. As Lucas said, we are due to go live very, very shortly. I believe the first cohort will be going in the next week. Fingers crossed. So yeah, it's a not quite of the out of the box. We've got a dev team who we've engaged with, who've done a fabulous job in terms of turning that around and really doing some fantastic work. Power BI is not a part of the portal, but that I think is a phase 2, phase 3 item. We don't have Power BI Premium. We have standard licenses.
Okay,
I've just seen a few more questions, and I've got a minute.
Yeah, the next one is from Sophie, that says, what insights into your clients has it helped you with?
That's a great question. So one of the things we do is R&D tax credits. And the obvious question most clients will ask us is, how much do you think I can get back if they're claiming or if they're benchmarking against someone else? What we've done is, we are one of the largest in the market. We've looked at our historic data. We had a few temps in, a few other people to enrich all of our records back to as far as we could, to be able to try and model a number that said, well, based on industry turnover and employee numbers, where do we think your number is going to be? As opposed to, there is some bad practice going on in our market where you've got it's almost PPI type sellers. So we want to try and bring that intel, and Dynamics has allowed us to think about it. I just saw another question as well. Engagement with the sales team. So how do you get engagement from the sales team? Yeah, they're they're probably the hardest group of users. But I think what we've tried to do is we've really tried to keep it simple. As I want to see, with very much my salesman hat on, 3 core things in our pipeline. How likely, what's it worth, and when's it going to close? So our pipeline structure is around those 3 bits of data. So we know you're going to have bad behaviors elsewhere. You're not going to track every email, even though it's easier to automatically do than you. I just can't work out why they don't do it. This is your phone calls. You're always going to miss a phone call because of some outrageous reason of traffic on the M25, even though we're in a lockdown, whatever. But those 3 data points, when's it likely to close? And we do it low, medium, high probability. When's it going to close as a date? And how much do you think it's going to be worth? They are the 3 things that are non-negotiable. If your pipeline doesn't include those 3 things against your data, the door is there. And that's helped because it's kept it away from being, you need to do all these bits and bobs. Let's keep it through. Yes, it gets a bit more complicated down the funnel, but the reason it gets more complicated down the funnel is because it's over the line, you've sold it, and you then should be able to drive revenue outcome as opposed to being spurious. So the common, I don't really want to invest all my time getting the admin right because I might not win it. Well, the real heavy lifting happens once you know you've won it, and the data record is going to be really important. So hopefully that's been a useful 15 minutes.
Excellent. I'm going to allow you to answer one more question, providing you can do it in 10 seconds. Are you using forecasting?
Is that a, Pippa, correct me, is that a forecast? Is that a Microsoft term or forecasting is a general term?
Could be both.
Okay,
maybe perhaps Sophie could clarify. Do you want to clarify that one, Sophie? Do you mean the out-of-the-box forecasting or just generally?
I'll answer the general one just to give you a bit of time.
Yeah, I mean the out-of-the-box forecasting. I've got it playing around with it at the minute. I was just interested to see whether he was using the Microsoft forecasting from Wave 2.
Right.
We don't.
Okay.
It's something I'll be looking at, but no, we're not using it currently.
All right. I think we're going to have to stop on that session, but that was great. Thank you very much, and thank you everybody for your questions and interactions. That was really, really interesting. Right. Well, I can see Andrew's switched himself on, so I'd like to invite Andrew now to help us know about the Power Up Solution Checker.
Yes, please. I'm just waiting for the power. Andrew Fisher's close. Okay. Now,
have you been made a presenter? Oh, you've muted.
I've been muted. Now I am a presenter. Okay.
Excellent. Cool.
Right. Let me share my screen. Now, that was a really good conversation. There's some tricky questions there. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How do you make people do stuff they don't want to do? So that was interesting to hear. Okay, so hopefully you can see my screen. That's coming through.
We can indeed see your screen.
Awesome stuff. Right, so I have, when do I need to stop, Frodo? 12:30? Oh, I can't hear you.
You've got about 15, you've got about 15, 17 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, excellent, good, 17.
Well,
and
because,
also,
my session's going to be short, so I'm giving people time back.
I can do mine in 5 minutes if you like. Yeah, okay, so what I'm going to talk about, complete change of pace, is something called Power Up Solution Checker. Hopefully some of you will have heard of this before, but I feel like I talk to a lot of people that haven't really come across it. They don't use it. Maybe they know about it, but they don't use it. And so I'm doing a bit of a sales job on that because I think it's a really handy tool for various kind of scenarios, and I think more people should use it, really. Okay, so here we go. This is one of my 2 slides. I'm not counting the first one because it just doesn't count. But hello, my name's Andrew Bibby. I'm actually the leader for D365UG UK, and that is lots of fun and stress and work, and it's my second unpaid job, as I say. But I've been involved with the user group for a few years now, along with Ferridan. I'm very pleased to present today. If you want to connect, if we're not already connected, there is a QR code for my LinkedIn there. I'm always happy to chat about this kind of stuff. I've worked with some of the people on the call before. Hello, Sandip. Hello, Sophie. Hello, Dean, from various different projects. And you may have heard this before, actually, this little talk. But anyway, let's get into it. Right, so Power Apps Solution Checker. Now, the first thing is that Solution Checker is a tool of many names, depending on which document you read. It's called Solution Checker, it's called Power Apps Checker, it's called Power Apps Solution Checker. I'm going to stick with that. So it's a tool that Microsoft have produced that is that lets you analyze the customizations that you've done and the development that you've done on your system, and checks it for various things, including use of, say, deprecated technology or things like web services. It will look for performance issues. It looks for a few things, actually. I've got a bit more information in this slide. But so why use it? The main reason to use it is to improve the quality of your solution. And that's from several perspectives: supportability, performance, reliability, knowing that you have a solution that is, or a system that is up to date, not going to break unexpectedly when Microsoft release an update, all that kind of stuff. But it is really targeted at improving the quality of your system. and all the solutions that are in it. So it looks at those various aspects, and I'll actually dig into that when I do a bit of a demo. But one of the things it looks at is use of deprecated features or coding approaches, things like that. So it's going to look at all of the bespoke code you've got in your solutions. And that is an important point. It just looks at the code that you've got in solutions. So it's going to look at your plugins, custom workflow activities, also JavaScript code that you've got in web resources, anything you might have embedded in other web resources, things like that. But it does the analysis on the code, some really quite clever analysis, and looks for problems. Another place you can use it is on looking at doing an upgrade. So I've used this with a couple of customers where they're moving from on-premise to online. And when you move to online, you kind of come under the umbrella of a newer version of Dynamics that has deprecated quite a lot of coding approaches, and they're very commonly used in on-premise solutions, particularly ones that have been updated over years. So if you run this tool, and you can actually run it against an on-prem system as well, it will look for those issues that you're going to trip over when you migrate to online. Primarily, it'll pick up things that are not going to break your solution when you upgrade to online, but it will just warn you to say, this isn't a problem right now, but it's going to be a problem in the future. So I'll give you a couple of examples of that. How do you get it? Well, probably if you're in Dynamics Online, you've got it already. It used to be that you had to install it, and depending on how old your environments are, you may still have to install it from, I think, from App Source, from memory. But more often than not, it's now packaged as part of an environment when you create it. So if you've created any environments in the past year or so, you've already got it, I'd imagine. So I will just show you where it is. How to use it. Okay, now we're getting into the demo part. So let me switch over to my environment. And here we go. Okay, so first things first, you go to make.powerapps.com up here. I've landed on this. This is my home page. And what I'm interested in doing is running Solution Checker against, yes, it's solutions. So this is a load of solutions I've got installed. Primarily lots of Microsoft solutions. So I will just move this over a little bit. So I want to show you this final column here. So in this final column, actually, you've got one called Solution Check. And most of these, if they've been built by Microsoft, you can see actually the status of them is checked by Microsoft. And that's the case for almost all of these solutions because they're all installed by Microsoft. There are a few that have got different options here. So this is one where I've got results from Solution Checker. I've got a couple here where actually Solution Checker hasn't been run, but it could be. And then if I look at, let me find the default solution, that's a slightly different option. Checked by publisher means that it's been checked, but it's been checked by a third party. In this case, the LinkedIn team have checked that. And then actually default solution right at the bottom here, you can see actually that's not supported. So there's a few different statuses that you can see there. And that's useful when you're just kind of checking how recently a solution check has been done. So let me actually show you it in action. Where is it? Is the first thing. Well, I have to select a solution. And you can see that this is popped up, this option here, Solution Checker. And if I drop that down, I've got some options to either run the tool, view the results of a previous run, or even download the results as well. And you can do a bit more analysis on the results if you want to, but it's not very useful in now that this tool is quite mature. So let me run it first of all. And I can do it from this menu, or actually I can do it from here as well. And you can see here, I've got the option to run it here. So I'm just going to kick it off. Now it's an asynchronous process. So depending on the size of your solution, it might take a minute or two to run. It might take 10 minutes to run. You can sit there and watch it if you like, but actually the Microsoft will send you an email when the tool is finished running with a little summary of what happened and issues that it might have found. So I'm not going to wait for this to finish because it might take a little while. I'm actually going to show you one I did earlier, which is this one above. And let's go and look at the results here. So we go to Solution Checker. We're going to do View Results. And this is going to show me the report, basically, of the analysis that it did last time. Now this solution, I've purposely chosen it because it's got lots of problems, but actually when I've run this tool on, like I say, particularly on-premise systems, it's not unusual for this tool to find hundreds of issues. Most of them are going to be the same sorts of issues. So if you think of like the 100% of issues, 80 or 90% of them are going to be the same issue, but multiple times, potentially hundreds of times throughout your code. So if we look at the different web resources we have in this solution, we've got a plugin here, we've got a couple of plugins here, and then we've got some JavaScript type stuff. If we actually open up one of these, click on that, it's going to tell me what the problems are that it's found, and it gives them a severity and severity medium, and then like a classification really. So if we click on that, it pops out this little window at the side and gives you just a bit more information about what the issue is. So a full description there of the issue, in this case using alert or confirm, and that's not something that Microsoft recommend, shipping with production code. Gives you a location, and actually with JavaScript, it even gives you the line that it's found this problem on. So that's very useful. Now I can also click on this link here, open up the docs for this particular issue. And actually it's linked, in this case, it's linked to a third-party site where it's giving me a description of what I should be doing. If I choose a different option, let's say, choose a different one from down here, what I want it to do is get to the Microsoft docs. So this is an issue, it's rated as high severity with upgrade problems. If I click on that link, it's actually going to go to the Microsoft docs, and this is what I wanted to show you. So this is a load of best practice documentation. Actually, it hasn't linked to the right document that I wanted to show you. So let's try again in a second. But you get the idea in that it gives you more details about the issue it's found, and then even potential fixes. Right, let's give it one more try and go for let's go for this one, because that's a Microsoft type issue. So this is high severity. It's actually telling me that I'm not specifying the columns in a query, and it's giving me a load of recommendations, basically what the symptoms are, some guidance about what I should do about it, and even sometimes some code snippets as well. So change this bit of code to this other bit of code, some recommendations there. And what's cool about this is like there's loads of information on some of these issues, which I think is really good. What I want to do is, can't get to it, but there is a page on docs that is possible to get to from here somewhere that basically gives you a list of all of the rules that Solution Checker is running. And it's actually a really good best practice guide for things that you should be doing while developing with Dynamics. So if you learn those rules yourself, you can start to actually build them into your code even before you've run Solution Checker. So yeah, other thing to highlight here is that this one is looking at, say, JavaScript and finding some problems there. One of the most common problems is use of the SOAP endpoint, which is very common in old code, and you definitely need to fix that. And also this one, which is to use the old object model in JavaScript. So in this case, xrm.page. That is really, really prevalent in older code, and it's something that you need to update to use this new approach when you move to Dynamics Online or version 9 on-prem. So really good little tip, but you're likely to get a lot of those issues because xrm.page is so well used. And then finally, I'm just going to look at an issue that we found in a plugin here. So what the tool's actually done is downloaded the plugin assembly, it decompiles it, which is clever stuff, and it looks at what the actual code is doing. So you don't have to have the source code for your assemblies. It will decompile it and look at it and tell you what the problem is. In this case, it's actually a sort of third-party assembly. So maybe I don't have the code. Maybe I need to look at replacing that assembly. But even more clever, if I scroll down to this bottom one here, I get past all of those errors. Okay, this bottom one here, and look at this error. It's basically, I've got a plugin called Plugin Auto Number, and this is actually a really common old plugin that used to be installed lots of times on on-prem solutions. And it's actually saying this plugin has been identified as a custom auto number solution. So it's recognized, actually, this is a commonly used plugin for auto numbering. And now there's an out-of-the-box solution for that. So it's recommending that I switch to that out-of-the-box solution rather than using a third-party tool. So clever stuff, right? It's actually looked at the assembly, and either it knows that that assembly name is commonly used for auto numbering, probably, or maybe it's using some cleverness behind the scenes to try and work out what it's actually doing. But there you go. So that is Solution Checker. Now, in an ideal world, you'd go through and fix all of these issues and really get down to zero before you start pushing your code out the door and your solutions out the door. It's not always possible or really practical to fix some of those issues, at least in one go, because you might have to retest a load of code and maybe that doesn't work for you at that particular point in your project. So the approach I generally take is to fix these high severity issues, and these lower severity issues that are medium, say, put that into the backlog as technical debt and work on those, in the coming releases. A lot of those medium issues are not causing any immediate problem. They're not going to break anything. And in fact, most of the issues that I found are not going to break anything immediately because Microsoft is not going to remove functionality from the system that is going to impact a lot of customers. So yeah, they do need to be worked on, these issues, but it tends to be something that you can just churn through as you do your normal development work. Now, the final point about this is actually you can run Solution Checker as part of your application lifecycle management process as well, because there is a DevOps pipeline. I can never remember the name, pipeline step. I don't know. I can't remember what they're called, but you can basically run the Solution Checker tool as part of a build pipeline. And so when somebody checks in some code or there's a pull request, say, you could actually have Solution Checker run automatically on any new changes that come in. And so that's maintaining that hygiene in your code base as you go along. So maybe a new developer joins the team and they might be using some older techniques. You can pick that up. So you're getting down to a really low number of issues that it finds, if not no issues. Right, sensing I'm out of time, so let me just switch back to my slides, give you one more link, and give you the link there. That bit.ly link is a link to the documents, the documentation for it from Microsoft, so you can explore that a bit more yourself. But highly recommend you using the tool. Get into the habit of using either manually as part of your own development practice or as part of a DevOps pipeline, just so that everybody, the quality of the solution gradually rises as you go along. Any questions right now?
That's brilliant, Andrew. Thank you very much for that. That's very informative. At least one person seemed to have gone off and run it straight away while you were talking. So I've got 5 points I want to make. They're relatively quick. So the DLL bit, I was wondering if it dived into that. So I'm glad you mentioned that. So that's very clever, especially recognizing the auto number thing. I was quite impressed by that. Deprecated. Oh, I just want to make something about this word deprecated. Deprecated does mean the thing still works, doesn't it? And it just means that Microsoft has said, we want to remove this feature, but not yet.
Yeah, it's a funny old word, isn't it? Because if you look at the dictionary definition, it doesn't really mean what Microsoft uses it for.
I know.
Yeah, it means that, they are intending to remove that feature, like xrm.page, but they'll give some notice before they actually do that.
And some things have been deprecated for many, many years, like announcements. I mean, that's anyway. On the Microsoft ones where it says Microsoft checked, I kind of think, well, they're bound to say that, aren't they? They're not going to say.
As far as I know, this tool has basically come out of development practices within Microsoft and then wanted to improve the quality of their own solutions. And actually, people like Shan MacArthur forcing the teams to go through this kind of process now to, raise the quality of even Microsoft solutions, as they should do, So, and then they've recognized that actually they need to do this for customers everywhere and for all customers to run tools like this and code quality tools as well. To improve the solutions that get deployed. Excellent. And that cuts down their support issues and that cuts down loads for them. So Yeah,
right,
it's good.
before I speak anymore, I'll to let someone else have a go. So I see Callum has got a question who says, whenever I run this on solutions, it runs for a bit and then says couldn't be completed. Have you seen this or know why?
I have seen it, and it generally gives you a reason, I think, from memory. It sends you that little email and basically says, why you can't run it. If you're trying to run it on some solutions that are managed solutions, that is an issue. If you're trying to run it, I don't know if it will even let you run it on Microsoft solutions, but I think there is actually an FAQ page. If you go to that documentation link, there is a page on there that gives you a list of common issues and an explanation for them as well.
Well, Rob's just posted that he's seen this using ES6 code that the checker couldn't understand. No, I can't. I'm sure I don't know what ES6 code is.
Yeah,
but
that's a JavaScript ECMA version.
Oh, the standard, right? Okay.
Yeah, and it will flag that, and I remember reading some information from Microsoft about that they do know about that issue, but they aren't really intending to do anything about it. I don't know why.
So generally, do you see many false positives, so to speak?
I don't see all that many, but I have read about lots of people having that sort of false positive. If you're running it on code that's been around for a while, that's where you get the value from it, because it's going to pick up a lot of issues that actually are valid problems. But yeah, some of the things like the ECMA script thing is a bit of a head scratcher, and you just have to ignore it. I think there was plans, and they've been talking about it for a while, but Microsoft were planning to let you customize the rule sets that get run, so you can exclude certain rules, which are false positives for you for whatever reason. But that hasn't been very quick to appear. I assume that is still on the backlog somewhere.
I imagine it's not very high in their priority list. Right. Anybody else want to ask a question before we go for our break? We're a little over time now, but no, that's good. It's a good topic, and we should all be running this tool, and I certainly will on a few systems over the next few days. So that was great. Thank you, Andrew.
Awesome, no problem.
Last chance for a question from anyone?
I'll have a look through the chat while we have a break.
Feel free. Well, we're on to a little bit of just a little break now. So it's 7:40. So maybe if we come back in 10 minutes, 7:50. So we'll take 5 minutes out of the break. I'll see how it goes. Feel free to stretch your legs, go and have a cup of tea, wine, beer, or just chat. So we'll leave the meeting open, and you can all talk, and we'll start in about 10 minutes, if that's okay. Is that all right with Joe? He's on next.
That is absolutely fine.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll aim for about 10 minutes or so. Okay. Great. So anybody want to kick off a conversation? Or badger anybody here? Don't be shy.
Thanks.
Don't everybody speak at once.
Actually, I have a question for Pippa, I think. It's Callum here. I was on the call you did, I think it must have been back in July, when you went through your UCI upgrade experience. I'm about to go into that next week.
Well, good luck.
And I think we're going to be okay, but who knows? And my question was, is it only effectively them just preventing the legacy app from working, and you have to switch everything over to the UCI? Is there any other changes? Nothing. There's no like upgrades. There's nothing else under the hood that's going on. Is it purely just the fact that the switching off the legacy client effectively?
That's a very good question.
My assumption. I just want to check that's nothing else going on.
I think it's a bit of both. I mean, they've done an awful lot of work on the UCI. It is almost a different engine. I think other people who are a bit more experienced than me could probably answer kind of the technical what's going under the hood type thing, going from UCI to web legacy. But I know from my experience, we probably did a bad and kind of upgraded a few other bits and pieces at the same time, which probably didn't help my blood pressure over that weekend. So yeah, it's kind of, I can't really answer that.
Okay, no, so, I think that helps actually. I think I'm fairly confident we'll be okay. But
do you mind if I have a go?
We tested everything with legacy with the new mod driven but that had basically we've got model driven apps which we've tested and all work fine in test, but that system hasn't itself upgraded to the new UCI. So with that, we'll upgrade next week, and then we'll test after that. But I suppose it's making sure that there shouldn't be anything unexpected or anything different under the hood, other than just the way they presents the information.
Yeah.
That's an answer.
Yeah. Well, I don't know about an answer. But you are saying that you've actually upgraded into apps already, and that's the thing that Microsoft they'll do it for you if you haven't done that already. So that's a good.
Yeah, we've got
you're
all
in that
apps
position.
and we've got everything switched over and updated all the code, and the dialogues are now Canvas apps and stuff like that. It's just I suppose it's just making sure there's nothing. It's just that thing I haven't read anything that says other than we're switching off the ability to have the legacy web. Is there anything else that might happen? Any other upgrade stuff that goes on under the hood, which we just need to be aware of? I couldn't see anything.
I don't believe so. I mean, I definitely you've got a couple of options. I would definitely look at Solution Checker and just make sure that your code's up to
That's why I said I can't. If I run it, it just says it failed.
Oh yeah, I see. Okay, let me find that link to why that might be. But there's nothing. What you could do if you wanted to upgrade earlier, you can actually force the upgrade on your test system.
Yes, we're doing that a week before anyway. So before.
Yeah.
Give us time.
Isn't there also a flag that you can switch on in the environment settings under behavior that says use unified interface?
Yeah.
I think, does that not do the same sort of thing?
I think so. It's just, and I suppose it's Microsoft literally switching that flag over and then preventing you from changing it once once that deadline's passed. If that's it, then that's great. I was just conscious that I was making sure there wasn't anything else that was sort of under the hood, which isn't on the surface, which might be affected, but I don't think so.
Right. I think for us, our upgrade is we were going from web to all of the model-driven apps. That was the big thing for us. We didn't have model-driven apps before we did that upgrade, so it was kind of shunting everything over. And as you heard from the talk, it was an interesting weekend.
Yes, absolutely.
It sounds like you're in a good place, Callum. You've kind of done almost everything you can, and now you've just got to test it all and cross your fingers.
Yeah, exactly. Test and fix. Thank you.
Yeah, but don't panic if you don't get the email until stupid o'clock on the Monday morning, as we found out.
That's right, because you had loads of. That's we brought the day forward slightly just because of that after your talk, actually, because it was kind of, I don't want everybody's system upgrading on the same day because they've sort of left it to that sort of last day. So, great. Unfortunately, most of the people at the client are currently furloughed, so it's kind of finding time for the when they're available to test and stuff. But I think we should be okay.
Great, thanks for that question, Callum. That was, good discussion there. Anybody else want to chip in with anything, even if it's just how rubbish the weather is or how good the weather is? Dare I ask, what do we all think of Dataverse, the name? Oh, no, Joe wanted to say something, I think.
I was just going to say, I'm freezing off every single unmentionable of mine at the moment.
Oh, dear.
It's gone very cold. So, yeah, let's talk about Dataverse.
Yes. Do we like the name? Do we not like the name? Do we care? Do we not care?
I'll let the lawyers decide.
Yeah, because there is something out there with that name, isn't there?
Yeah, we'll see.
You'd think they would have looked a bit harder this time after the last fiasco.
I get what they're trying to do with it. I can see the vision.
Yeah. Well, I suppose it's slightly more snappy than Common Data Service.
I think my main issue is that trying to explain to a client who has never heard of Dynamics or CDS and saying, your data is being held in a Dataverse.
Yeah.
What
True.
do you think of you? It's like,
Yeah.
is this
Because
guy on something?
yeah, because it sort of implies Dataverse implies, right, your data's now everywhere, which for most clients, yeah, we don't want
Still what they
to hear
want.
that. Don't want to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Who's
that's
just post?
that's
Go
why
on,
I've
Steve.
not told Luke, because you heard him tell things like that. It's just like I am not mentioning that the names have changed, because they'll be like, "Oh no, where's the data gone? It's fine. It's still in the same place. Don't panic. Please don't panic." So
Oh, I've just seen Rob's comment here. I love it. CDS, CDM, very Ron Seal. That must give his age away. Brilliant. Okay. Anybody else want to chip in with anything? I see Andrew showing off his awards behind him. Very good. Very strategically positioned, Andrew.
I do
Only
like
for
it too,
proper
so
work stuff.
Yeah.
it's the best part, if you look sort of towards the bottom right, the Maximus Cup.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
the best, which is the best
Never
thing
have
ever.
it. I can show you a photographs from MVP Summit with Scott Durow doing awful things to Chris Huntingford, and a nice sparkly, shiny mug that Alison's made for me. Oh, I've also got a little Lego man, a little Lego representation of myself.
Oh, that's Neil.
Oh.
Neil
That's
Scrumpling,
Neil, yeah.
or yeah.
Yeah, very cool. Anyway, I digress.
What's the landscape photo behind Andy?
That is a picture that I took in America back when we could travel the world. It's a bridge on Highway 1, and I can't remember the name of it, but it's very impressive to look at.
Cool.
Time for Joe?
Oh, well, 1 minute.
Time for Joe.
Are we early?
In 1
Oh,
minute.
okay.
1 minute's time.
You
I've been
need patience
hopeless
before you
timekeeping.
enjoy the Joe.
What?
If that's the
Who's
thing.
written? Wasn't there something about Andrew not aging?
Unfortunately not. As the grey hairs will attest.
Well, yeah. Because there comes a point when you just don't care, really.
Well, I'm going
Yes,
for that.
I still have grey. That's grey. I still have hair, so I don't really care what colour it is. It's still there.
You have green
Right,
hair?
Joe, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. So let me share the screen.
I shall mute myself.
Thank you. Okay. So thanks very much for having me along. So today we're going to race forward with environment variables, or in another way, we're going to answer the question, what's the deal with them? So it's going to be quite demo heavy, this, so we'll just get rid of all the stuff like that. So in short, yes, I'm a nerd. Yes, I've got too many badges, and I like food. There we go.
You haven't got as many as Julian Sharp, by the way.
No.
I think he's done every exam going, but anyway.
I might be trying to emulate, because Julian was the one who actually taught me dynamics originally. So maybe it's like the pupil trying to sort of outsmart the master. Maybe
Do the maestro. Yeah, very good.
Yeah, let's not go down the Freudian mess that's my brain at this particular juncture. But yeah, connect with me on LinkedIn, Twitter. Always happy to talk about dynamics, and in particular the Power Platform, which is what we're going to look at right now. So we're going to take a look at how you can get going with environment variables. So this is a very new thing that's come on stream by Microsoft. It was generally available, I think, around the time of Ignite. And in a nutshell, it gives you the ability of being able to have separate, distinct values in each of the different environments, CDS, Dataverse environments that we deploy out into. And from that, we can actually start to control the behavior of our apps and our flows as a consequence. So we're in the Maker portal at the top up here. If I go down into solutions, I've got something here, environment variables demo. And we can see that I've got a couple of different environment variables on this list down here already that have been set up in this solution. So the dead easy to set up, or all it's a case of doing is just going to new. It's right at the top. So obviously something we want to check out. And at this point here, we just need to give some details about our environment variable. So in this case, we're just going to say it's my awesome environment variable. Helps if I can spell. We've got a few different options around the data type that we can have them in. So it could maybe be a decimal number, text, a yes or no option set, a JSON thing. In this case, we'll sort of say text, give that a default value of test. So a default value will mean that if it's not been set in our particular environment, it will always fall back on that. So it gives you a nice little safety net there in case things go awry. But then what you can do down here is then override it on a per environment basis. And we do that just by supplying a current value like so. So give that a save at this point. Takes just a second to create it. Now, the thing to remember with this is that this is actually, well, it's actually two entities or two tables, I should say, behind the scenes that's sort of managing creating this, but it is a solution component, something that can be transported between environments. So if we click back into this now, we can see that we've got everything that we've configured down here. We've got the option of being able to override the current value, and we can also remove it as well. So this is potentially something that you may need to do as you get getting your solutions pushed out. Just remove the current value, because otherwise when you try and import the solution in, it will have that value in there. So for now, I'm just going to click remove on that. And then we'll just go out of that for a second. So in terms of how they actually work, how you can sort of use them, if we just sort of explain what we've got in here at the moment. So we've got a, we won't look at that one, we will look at this one here. So we've got a yes, no environment variable on here, which is going to control some behavior of a canvas app we're going to see in a second. We've got a number here to represent the version of an app that we're going to look at in a second. And then finally, we're using the JSON environment variable type to store some configuration data that's going to modify and control the behavior of our app. Okay, so in terms of how this is being used, then if I jump across into this tab on here, we can see we've got a little canvas apps. This is basically baby's first canvas app on here, just one of the contact apps that you develop as part of it, you know, when you're first starting out with the platform and stuff. So you can see we've got a few different things on here. So we've labeling the environment test, we've got a version number down here, and we're also making some modifications to the theme and to the logo. Now, you know, this is this Cambridge user group. We don't really care about Norwich. You know, they're all just down there, you know, feeding hamburgers to swans and staying in three-star travel taverns. So we want to change this to something that feels a bit more sort of Cambridge. So in order to do that, then, if we jump back into our app config data, I'm just going to override the current value that we've got down here. So I'll just remove and delete that. We'll have a look at what this is doing in a second. Click on save. Now, assuming the demo gods are with me, if I do a control refresh of this now, we should see the app magically transforms in front of our eyes. So now we've basically fed it in new values that dictate not just the environment name, but also the version number. We've changed it to a much more, you know, Cambridge company. There's nothing more Cambridge than Acorn. I remember the Acorns as a kid in schools and stuff. They were good fun. And we've also been able to actually tinker about with and also change around the various different, you know, styling components in the app itself. So pretty cool, right? It means that maybe, you know, if we've got, let's say, an ISV solution, or if we're deploying out into different maybe brands of our businesses and stuff like that, we can very quickly and easily control how the app performs at runtime just by changing a setting, or based on environment, or however, you know, whatever we want to do basically. So at this point then you may be wondering, okay, how are we actually doing this then? So if we jump across into the Power App Studio up here, we're back in the app over here. What we're doing is on our on-start event for the app itself, we've got a whole bunch of little bits of snippets of code that are sort of running at this point. So what we're doing is that we are getting two values in particular. So we're getting the app version and whether the app is enabled as well. So we're using the yes no field to actually control whether or not the app works or not. So again, we can sort of see that in action. If I just go into here, change the default value to no, save that and just give it a refresh, should get a different message or not. See, I tempted fate by saying the demo gods. I think that's a problem. I think. No, sorry, I changed the wrong one. That'll be it. So make sure, so current value overrides default value. Don't forget that, especially if you're giving a talk on it. So So now we can see, okay, so it's picked up our signing, but we've actually been able to disable the entire app. So maybe, okay, as part of, let's say, a deployment or something like that, we just want to maybe make sure nobody's in our app during a particular moment or time. So again, we've got the ability to be able to control that. And again, we do that by sort of setting, a variable when the app starts, and that then just feeds in and just disables the various controls on the app itself. Now, in order to read the JSON data, we're actually having to basically chuck this out into Flow. Rather annoyingly, at the moment in Power Apps, you don't have really good ability of being able to consume JSON data. You can sort of get a JSON object built out and hand it off to where you need it to, but you've really got no way of being able to consume that. So all we do in that flow down there, I can just show you it very quickly. If we go into here, just a very, very basic sort of receipt response flow. Sort of takes some data, passes it out, and then restores it into something that we can more easily consume. Nice and simple. And then, so what the app is doing is setting all this, and it sets it all down here. So at any point, then we can just sort of modify the behaviors of the app. So at the moment, it's using the old configuration settings. All I need to do is just run the on start again, and we should see it gets all nice and updated to what we need it to be. Pretty good stuff, right? So the key thing to remember then with the Power Apps is that you are looking at, as I say, two tables in the Common Data Service or Data First environment. So the key one is the environment variables values table that stores those current values that we set before. And then the second one is the definition. So all we're doing on this one, in this particular case, is we've added in both of these tables down here into our app, and we're just doing a little lookup based on the schema name. And using that, we can then return the current value based on that, provided there's one there. If there isn't, then in this case, you'll probably just end up defaulting to either false or something else. But generally, as long as you're handling it from a function standpoint in Power Apps, you should be good. So key steps to remember then, make sure you've added those two tables into your app, add in the appropriate code that does the lookup based on that. Then once you're consuming that, you can then, the world's your oyster basically from a Power App standpoint. Now, you can also work with these in Power Automate Flow as well, which is quite good. So in order to do that, the setup around that is ever so slightly different. So we've got a flow here that sends just some details about the contact record when we create it in the app itself. If we just talk through what this is doing, so when we get the new contact, we declare a new variable to store in our flow email that's going to be used a little bit further down the line. Once again, what we're doing on this is that we want to list out or get the environment variable record or environment variable definition record that we care about. Now, because we've got no way of knowing the ID, all we've got at this point is the schema name. We just do a list record step and list it based on that. That'll always return one record. Now, I believe if you can do something fancy in terms of get the first record from that on there. So if Zara Lagquist is watching this, she's probably going to shout at me. But in essence, what you can also do is just do an apply to each around that. That's always going to be one record. From that, you then do a query into your environment variable values table to get the current environment variable value. Try saying that quickly 10 times. And again, that's always going to return just one value. So again, we can wrap that into apply to each, do a first from the collection or whatever. And then again, we get the flow email from that. And then from there, we can sort of send out an email. So we can sort of maybe just test this out quickly and just see how it's all working. So first things first, I need to just re-enable my app because it's currently in a disabled state, as we saw. So let's go back onto here, give it a quick refresh. Let's add in a brand new contact. So we'll give Mr. Bibby some love this evening. How about that? And 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, whatever. Doesn't really matter. So it's going to save the record. So at this point, it's going off and creating our record. And then we should be able to see a new email will come through into our inbox in a second. And there we go. So again, it's been able to get the email value from our environment variable. So again, if we were to go into here and just check the email address, we can see it's set to my email address on here. So again, so in this case, this is particularly useful. So let's say you have got a flow that's doing out emails. You don't necessarily want to be sending the accounts team an email every single time you're testing something in dev. So maybe using environment variables, with a flow, you can sort of control the behavior of that and just make sure that it's your inbox getting spammed as opposed to your colleagues. So that pretty much is environment variables at speed. So I think we've got about 3 or 4 minutes left. So
certainly, yes.
I'd be more than happy to take any questions or jump into a bit more.
Well, we have one question already. So thank you very much for that, Joe. That was very interesting. There's all sorts of places where you can take advantage of that, I'm sure. So Anthony asks, can these be utilized in a model-driven app / CRM?
Yeah, so one of the ways in which I've been able to utilize it is Scott has released what are called smart buttons for the Ribbon Workbench. So what you can do as part of this is reference environment variables within a smart button. So for example, you can actually call a flow and then feed that flow an environment variable value using the smart buttons functionality. What I'll do afterwards, I've got the blog post in the chat somewhere, so I'll dig that out. And then, yeah, Scott as usual, has got a really great post where he just talks through how to set it all up.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else would like to ask anything? Oh, you got a great big thumbs up there. Okay.
But really, so just to, I guess, if there's no questions, so really what we're trying to achieve with environment variables is, we're trying to get that really nice application lifecycle management process into the hands of maybe, the non-devy people. So traditionally, when you're doing, deployment pipelines and things like that, this type of functionality, you find ways of doing it. You maybe set up like a configuration entity or table, store this stuff in. With this now, we can actually utilize native functionality in the platform, which is always a big plus. And we can try and introduce some perhaps better practice approaches into our citizen developers or our colleagues in the business so they can, leverage the benefits of, ALM to its fullest.
Fantastic. Thank you again. You're getting some praise there. Really good demo and explanation. Super. Any other questions for Joe?
Rob's my fanboy, so he's
It's not you under an alternate alias or something.
I wish, I really do. Wouldn't that be amazing? Yeah, I'll dig out that blog post now that was spoken about. But yeah, I'm going to be sticking around now for the next half an hour or so. So if you've got any more questions, let me know.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Hi, Joe. It's Dean.
Oh,
hello.
Go for it.
Hello. With the environment variables, is there an ALM plugin that we can put in DevOps that we can use to modify these as part of a pipeline?
Not at the moment, no. So what you could look at doing instead, because they are in effect tables with records in the Dataverse, you could use, let's say, Sean McAnee's got some PowerShell scripts that let you create records and stuff like that. So that'll be the way that you do it at the moment. I think it's something that they have spoken about being on the roadmap probably for next year as they're going to try and enhance the DevOps capabilities. But at the moment, there's little sort of tricky, hacky ways that you can get around it.
Okay, cheers, thanks.
No worries.
In case anybody needs to go, I've just posted the link for the feedback form, but hopefully you'll stay for a little bit longer. But it's there. It'd be nice if you could fill that in. It's very simple. There's just 2 questions per speaker. What did you think of the session and the rating, and then a general box at the end. If you've got any suggestions for how we run our user group meeting, any feedback would be welcome, because obviously this is needs to be useful to people, and we don't want to do things that aren't useful. Right. If there's nothing else for Joe, then it's down to me, I think.
I would have one. Hello. Hi. Good evening from Czech Republic. Well, I would have one question for Joe.
Yes, of course. Go ahead.
As I saw the loop of apply to each and what we're getting for one specific record, I don't really like this personally when getting into the flow. when you really know it's only one record there, one value, and I'm listing records and looping to apply to each and setting a top count for one record. Is this really the best practice these days, or is there any better workaround to really get one specific value, but you do not really know the ID of that record?
Yeah, as I say, that I would have many people shouting at me based on what I've done on there. So what I would say is that is probably not the suggested approach. It's misleading because it potentially implies to somebody coming in that there could be multiple records returning. So I think what you can do, I can't remember the exact syntax, but you can do like a first on an item collection in Flow. So that would be an alternate way of doing that. So if you always know there's one record coming back, instead just create a formula that references the first item in the collection from the Common Data Service.
Okay, I do always use top count one. It's really silly, but it works.
Yeah, I forget what the exact syntax is going to be. Yeah, top one or first. I forget the exact syntax on it, but yeah, that I would say that's a better approach because it's going to be a bit clearer for somebody looking at it. Okay, this flow is just concerned with one record as opposed to multiple ones.
But still, it's applied to each, and it looks kind of strange when looking into the flow and it's like applied to and then setting up a variable. But okay, thank you.
Yeah, it also has some performance impacts as well, I believe. So yeah, so don't do what I've shown you, basically.
We get the idea.
We get the idea. Yes, exactly.
Yes. Cool. Any other questions for Joe? Okay. Right. Me. Let me do my sharing. There we go. Hopefully you can see something now. Right, so that's me, Ferriton Kadir, and yeah, I've worked with that form years and years and years and years ago. Maybe some of you remember it as well. I'm going to have a very brief talk. I just want to highlight a feature which you may or may not have seen. Export to PDF. It's part of the sales app, and I can't remember when the predecessor to this first appeared. It was somewhere in version 9. It's only in the unified interface. And if we look on a sales record, like a quote, we had these two buttons, create PDF and email as PDF. And these work off a Word document template that you would have to have previously added to the system, and it just automatically generates a PDF. Now, what they've done I think in this release wave, the 2020 release wave, they've combined those buttons, and we now just have a single button called Export to PDF, and we get a slightly nicer form with a bit of a preview. So, without further ado, let's go and have a look at that. So, I'm in a demo system on the Sales Hub. I'm on a quote record. It's got some products there, and you'll see we have the export to PDF button, and you'll see straight away these are out of the box templates, by the way. You can see straight away it's landed on the first template in this list, and you can instantly see a preview, which is pretty quick, and then there's another one there. And then from here, of course, you can go to download, just save it to your machine, do whatever you want to do with it. Or you can create a Dynamics email with it. So we get this little thing pinned over to the bottom right, which will eventually do its rendering. There we go, and the email is attached, and off you go. And the other nice feature is you can add that to your SharePoint document library if you've set up SharePoint. So that's done there, and if you want to find that again, then we just pop over to the related and then documents, and there is that quote already sitting in the SharePoint library. Now, a few little settings with this. So if we pop into the app settings area and general settings overview, convert to PDF. So I have already switched this on. So if we switch to manage, then you'll see a list of the entities for which this can be switched on. So if I say show only the enabled entities, you see, I think out of the box it's just quote, and I've I have put account on. And then let's say I want to make this available to order as well. You can just search for order, click on that, click save. And then if we go back to the sales area, find an order record, and then just pick one at random here. And then we can go to, it's funny how the buttons are in different places depending on what entity it is. Click on the export to PDF, and that is not an order. I've ended up on an account because I clicked the wrong thing as usual. There we go. So there's an order, there's export to PDF, and there's an order summary. Again, that's an out of the box template. And yeah, that's a very simple feature. Now, document templates, how do you get document templates into the system? So that's a slightly different thing. So I'm just going to cheat here by going to the old interface. And if you look at the templates area, you'll see document templates listed. And you can do this, upload a template to create one of those. Or if you use the advanced find, you can do it there as well. If you just search on there and you can say results, and then you can do new, and then you get this, and you can, this is for, I'm not going to go through this because this will take too long. You can generate a template for Word or for Excel, choose your entity and build up all your relationships. And once you've done that, you end up with, so this is something I use in Word, which you switch on the developer tab, and then you can pull in, so you've got to switch on this XML mapping pane and then navigate your way to here. All of this is documented on the Microsoft website, and then you can start pulling in fields from the entity and also related child entities and so on. And this is what's called a repeating control for the line items, and so automatically show as many line items as there are for the quote, and you can format it into all sorts of stuff. So this bit is a little tricky when for the first time, but once you've done it, it's not too bad. But having set it up, it's quite a nice way of getting PDFs out of the system. What I haven't fathomed out, and I think is worthy of a bit more investigation, is having it happen automatically in workflows and flows. I know there are other techniques for doing this in Flow, utilizing features outside of Dynamics. There is an export to PDF action available in the Web API, which I think perhaps could be utilized programmatically to generate PDFs. And some other limitations I've come across with the document templates. So when you're doing something like a quote that's got lots of line items, what I've failed to find, and perhaps someone can correct me if they know better, is that when you do the export to PDF and your template, your Word template is showing all these repeating items, there appears to be no way to control the order in which these appear. And as far as I can tell, they seem to come out in the order that they were created, whether it's the newest one at the top or at the bottom, I'm not sure. So I know some people would say, well, actually, I'd like to control the order of my line items. I can't see a way to do that. The other thing that I found is in the document template, there is no way to format that. The quantity there is showing multiple decimal places. The way you get around that is actually go into the definition of the field, attribute or column and change the decimal places there. So that's possibly a little bit annoying. And one other thing that I will mention is with the document templates, after you've added it to the system, there's no way to get it, to change it. And there's no way from here to download it either that I found. And so we resort to this, the XRM toolbox, and there's an add-in called the Document Template Manager, and I've just linked it to my instance here, and it shows you a list of all of them, and it's got this wonderful button, download the template, and then you get your Word file back, which you can work on and make changes and then upload again. So that's really all I wanted to say. It was just a very simple feature. which you may have glossed over if you don't look at the command bar that much. In terms of the other apps, so if you go into, say, the customer service hub, as far as I can see, there's nothing in here in any of the configuration areas to do stuff with PDF. But if there is an entity for which you have switched on export to PDF, then, and I did do this for account, then it does show up and it will work. So there you go. That's just kind of a little out of the box thing. But curiously, if you go back to the sales hub and go into the settings and say, I'd like to do this for case, all these other things to do with case are here, but not case. So it's slightly odd. And this can work for custom entities as well. And the key documentation is up here, lots and lots of stuff. So I think as a very short, simple way of getting a PDF out, I think it's a feature that works well. There are, of course, many third-party add-ons that have been doing this for a long time, and including the ability to generate these in workflows, if I'm allowed to say workflows still. Right, okay, that was me. Hope that brought to your attention something that perhaps you hadn't seen before. Happy to take any questions. So yeah.
Roden, there's a couple of questions in the chat. But
right, yeah, I'm just trying to find my chat. Sorry.
I'm just going to. Can I crash it while you?
No, go on. Right, off you go.
Yeah, I seem to remember, like I've looked at this a little while ago, and I seem to remember there's an option to save the document as an activity instead. If you haven't got SharePoint enabled as like an attachment.
Oh, right. Maybe I'm seeing that because I've switched on right? SharePoint. Yeah, I think you're right. Yes.
So when you generate the PDF, instead of saying save to SharePoint, I can't, this is ringing a bell like I've used it somewhere else. But I was just checking. Really, is that the case that it does that?
I don't remember seeing that option now. Let me just
I think it does, Andy, because I was working on it today.
Sweet.
Because I did exactly the same thing. I was looking for the two buttons and wondering why there was one on there.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, it does that somewhere else. I just can't remember where. Sophie,
yeah, I'm just trying to work out where it is. Yeah, what's that?
So if I save a document as an attachment in Dynamics, yes, it is saved as it's saved to. I'm going to call it CDS because it's CDS. But it's saved to file storage transparently, which is much cheaper than normal data storage. It's about 8 to the price.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's not as cheap as SharePoint, I don't think, but it is still cheaper than normal old data. So that is happening behind the scenes. You just don't see it.
Correct. Yeah. I'm just looking at another question from Philip. I think what I'd be guessing if I said it's in Sales Professional as well. Let's just see if this page helps us. No, I don't know is the answer to that question. I suppose this is headed Sales Enterprise. I guess we'd have to look at the licensing document to see if it's there, unless somebody else knows. Oh, Joe's warned you, Andrew, about using old names. And Gavin says you can add it to opportunity question answered. Yeah, very good. Okay.
Yeah.
The button says save to Dynamics, but it doesn't. It just says save the timeline, but it doesn't say where it's put it.
I wonder, in the system where you've just tried that, do you have the SharePoint integration enabled?
No.
Yeah, but see, I'm thinking that if you do that, then that button goes away. Because if I just reshare my system, if I can just find the button, it says that, you see, I only see save to SharePoint, and I have got SharePoint integration switched on.
It puts it in the timeline as a note on the quote.
Right. Oh, even having done that. Right. Okay. Interesting. Yep.
Sheridan, I think on the account when you did it, it said save to Dynamics.
Did it now? Oh, maybe because it hasn't been. Maybe I haven't integrated accounts with SharePoint. So let's try that.
Yeah.
So let's do that again. Export to PDF. No, it still says SharePoint. Yeah. Well, let's do that. Save to SharePoint. I don't remember seeing it on the timeline, but that doesn't mean anything. No. I'll play around tomorrow and have a.
Well, I've got it in front of me right here. It's put it on the timeline on the
Right.
quote itself.
Interesting how we're getting started different behaviors. Yep.
But as
Okay.
I say, I haven't got SharePoint enabled on this.
That must be the reason. I would just, well, it's dangerous to assume, but let's assume that is the reason. Okay, great. Right. Any other points? Oh, someone says, sorry, can you repeat that bit? When is it that the files are stored in file storage cheaper versus in the database? Well, generally anything that is a file, such as an attachment to an email or an attachment to a note, is automatically stored in a different type of storage by the system. It's nothing that you as a user need to be concerned with. It's all very transparent. The only upshot is that file storage is charged at a much lower cost than database storage. And there's a third type of storage, which is called log storage, which is used for your audit log files. And that's also cheaper than database storage, but a little bit more expensive than file storage. If you want the ins and outs of how much you get given as a default entitlement, I'm afraid read the licensing guide.
A couple of caveats to it. So file storage, you get quite a lot. I think it's 2 gigabytes per user.
It's huge.
With each user license. So you tend to, if you've got 500 users, that's just tons of file storage. So you don't tend to end up being charged for it because it's kind of included. But the other thing is that that doesn't apply to on-prem if you're still on-prem. And it also doesn't apply if you're still on an enterprise agreement that was agreed before the file storage changes came in, which I think was April 2018.
Yes, that's about right.
So if you haven't switched, and I've actually just had a customer go through this, they renegotiate their enterprise agreement, and that's the point they switched. So they hadn't switched up to July this year. So
Sal, I think the answer is yes and yes to your last 2 points, Sal.
Yeah.
I found the reference for how much you get. It's 20 gigs of file storage, even with no licenses, and then you get an extra 2 gigs per user license that you have.
Yeah. Sal, if you want to see how much space you're using at the different types, if you go into the Power Platform Admin Center, which is aka.ms/ppac, that will take you. You can look at the storage analytics, which is down the left-hand side under resources, I think it is. Thanks, Rob. And you get a breakdown of how you're using your storage across the different environments. So that can be very helpful.
Yeah, well, here it is, since I just happened to be there. Yep. So down the left-hand side, capacity, and you can see the different sorts, database, log, and file. So it's worth looking. Oh, that's not very good, is it?
Yeah, slightly over.
Yeah, but I've only got naught on the entire. I think this is a trial, which is why I've got.
Yeah.
All trials say they're out of capacity instantly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I've been standing up a load recently.
Yeah. Very good. Oh, Feridun's so fancy with your screen share. We try to please. Right, well, I think that brings us to the end of the presentation. So I think we should have a round of applause, not necessarily for me, but for all of the other speakers. So if you don't mind unmuting and doing a nice little clapping, thank you very much, speakers. So we can wrap up, or we can have a little bit of a discussion. I just want to ask, first of all, what do people think of this short format? Do you like it? Is it long enough to get into something in detail? Or maybe have a mix, a few short ones and one long one? What do you think?
I find the short ones very good.
You do?
Yeah. Because you can cover a lot of different topics.
Right.
And pick up quite a lot in such a short space of time.
Okay. A few other people have just posted to say they like the format. Okay. Oh, there's loads of comments coming in. Yeah. Great format, great format. I think. Well, perhaps we'll do our next one.
Just pick up Sal's question.
Yeah, what's that one?
Which is around file storage. So, yeah, file storage is still more expensive than blob storage or SharePoint, but it's completely transparent for you, and it is, like I say, something that I've actually never had a customer had to pay for. And even if they did it, it would be like $10 a gigabyte per month or something.
It's $2, Andrew.
Is it really?
It's really cheap. It's $2 per gigabyte per month for file, and 40 for database.
Yeah, which is pretty high. But blob storage solutions that you can get, you either have to buy a third-party one, or there is a Microsoft one, but I've tried that before, and it is really, like, apart from anything, it's probably not been updated in about 2 years, but it's like held together with bits of string, and I would not trust it with anything. But so yes, you could store attachments in blob storage, really super cheap if you were doing lots of volume. But you kind of have to weigh that up against actually the cost of doing that and maintaining that.
There are third-party tools, aren't there, for automatically from long ago there was one for taking stuff out and putting them into SharePoint automatically to save on the database costs.
Yeah, that's another option that actually Philip makes a really good point, that the blob storage and SharePoint options don't enforce security, which obviously does. That can be a bit of a deal breaker, having to build that yourself.
And when you do, if you had Dynamics online before a certain date, you would have been on the old storage model, and when your environment gets changed, all of the jiggling things around is done automatically and transparently by Microsoft. You really have no idea where the thing is stored, and no, you can't get at the data indirectly via Azure. It has to go through the Dynamics APIs. Okay.
Sal's last comment.
Yes, I'm sure it is.
Yeah, no doubt.
It is. Yes,
If,
but remember,
if you're having to store a lot of data, then you might want to look at that. But yeah, you've got to maintain all that yourself then. Okay.
Sophie, think you have to have a robust data retention policy for all your tables entities to support your data storage and manage your capacity.
Yeah, something I've never known any customer to have. There is a massive market for an ISV solution that enforces data retention with different rules per entity. And if I had the time and inclination, I would build it and make my fortune and retire. But
well, then why don't you? If it's going to make you retire, you could make the time. Quite a few more people are saying this format is quite a refreshing change, more like preparing you for being a solution architect than the technical architect.
That is nice. Yeah.
Oh, Sophie's writing one now, Andrew. You've been.
I'll pop round.
Gavin says, is it simple to move to the new capacity model? I think you need to talk to your CSP or Microsoft, depending on who you pay for your licenses, about transitioning to the new model. Unless Andrew knows better.
I don't want to monopolize conversation because this isn't my meeting. I've just been through this recently with a customer, and yeah, it's not any effort on your side. The biggest problem that a customer had was they had to switch licenses because they were on the old enterprise licenses, and they then needed to switch into sales enterprise and customer service enterprise because they couldn't use the old licenses basically, and that took about 2 months to happen. Took ages, and that's all Microsoft stuff that they have to do. And it was only when that they'd kicked in and they'd also removed the allocation of the old licenses that actually they switched storage model. Otherwise, they were just in the old storage model, and it showed up that they were massively over their allocation and everything else. But it didn't matter until they switched to the new storage model.
But
so,
is it the case, Andrew, that if you're on the old storage model, you're still being charged at the old price?
Yeah, you're not being charged for like storage. Basically, it's included in the license, right? Or you're paying for your environments on a per environment basis.
Oh, that's the other downside. In the old model, you have to pay for each environment. Yeah. Whereas this model, you can have as many as you like, providing you've got the space.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Any other comments, questions, general chit chat?
I like this format. We've done this format at the Birmingham meeting a little bit, where we've had a short session, then a slightly longer session, and then a longer still session. So you have like 15 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour. And that works all right as well. You know, it's a bit different, and it's different level of preparation for speakers, and you get a little taster. But I think doing this works. It works if you do it kind of occasionally. And yeah, I think it's great in that case, and it's a bit different. So
yeah, I guess perhaps there was a little bit of a communication problem between me and Anna on the number of slides, because clearly she must have not got the message, or I didn't get the message to her properly. So yes, I saw the referee gif earlier on. Yeah, and maybe this format may or may not work as well in an in-person meeting. I don't know. We'll just try different things.
Yeah.
Right. Well, perhaps we should wrap up. I have posted the feedback form. If you can have a go at that, that'll be great. So thank you all very much for attending. Thank you for your participation, and again, thank you to the presenters. So on that note, I am going to stop the recording, but I'll hang around for 5 minutes or so if anybody wants